Hey guys, so before we go and start making our visuals, one small change. The same thing as I did with the countries, I added those colors here. I thought this is gonna be the case for the pollutants as well. We need to be able to have the same kind of coloring scheme for each of the pollutants. So I added this code here. So just go ahead and rewrite it. Basically, what it does is it grabs every pollutant by its pollutant name and adds those colors to it. And here we have a nice nifty list comprehension that creates a list of pollutants with the name of whatever I put in here and the color whatever I put in here. We're just going through this this loop to build those. So you can see pollutant, we're going through pollutants, but I enumerate them. So we get the item from the pollutant and also the index. So using that index, I can take the color. So we can go through two lists at the same time. And we just take one line for it. And then I did the bulk update as I did before. I'm updating the color. Obviously, I needed to change that in the model. So I changed that in the model. I did the migrations and migrate. And in here, I'm redirecting. And by the way, I also did that here because it didn't work the way it should work. Obviously, after this operation, it should just take us to the main air pollution view. So I used the redirect. I had to add it here at the very top. Django shortcuts, render, and redirect has to be here as well. And oh, we can delete this as well because we're not using it anymore. And what else did I do? Oh, of course, you need to go to your URLs and add this path here. So the same as we did with the temp country creator. Now we have temp add colors to pollutants. We take from views this function that we just built a second ago here, and we give it a name temp add colors to pollutants. And now by going to our website and just putting this, that's the path that we're interested in. So I'm going to copy this and add it after air pollution because we are in air pollution app. Enter, it does its magic, and now it was very quick. So now it's redirecting to the page. That's why it took a while to gather this data here. Okay, so now if we go to the pollutants in our database, you can see that we have the colors. So let's do our typical git add all and then git commit. And we are ready to build some cool graphs. All right, guys, so I'm not sure if you are aware, but we are approaching a very interesting part of this tutorial. And that means diving into visualization and a little bit more complex visualization. That's where the real fun starts. And so let's go into samples of Chartjs and let's have a look at different options here. So whenever I'm trying to come up with some good visual for some data that I'm trying to visualize, I like to see samples of some different visuals. So in here we have some bars, horizontal bars. Here we have multiple axes. Very interesting stuff. So you can check out different visuals. So then, oh, this is interesting. Wow, that's really cool. And then when you see it, you're thinking, well, wait a second, this is actually something I can use. This is something that perfectly encapsulates the problem that I'm trying to show. So that's kind of my thought process in building visuals. So what I did, I went through different charts here, and I have a couple of picks. One of the most interesting to see, I mean, the most useful, I think, is this one here that can represent all the different countries for different pollutants here. So as a x-axis, I can use pollutants. Y-axis is obviously the pollution level, but we can stack different countries and then compare it to a limit. And in here, I have a pilot of it. It's still just a sample view. So what I did basically, I saved one of those samples like this. I saved it on my computer, and then I opened this file in my PyCharm, and I just did some tweaking, so I got this to this point. So basically, I'm trying to simulate here having all those countries here, and the limit is the only thing that shows for now. So when you open this view, you have this chart that shows different pollutants here, and then only the limit is showing for now. And then if you want to compare, say, and at some point I just decided to go with A, B, C, D, because it's just a pilot. So let's say I want to compare H to G. Obviously, if you want to see all of them, you can just click, 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 click. Definitely, there's a JavaScript that we can use for having those buttons here, for example, that says select all, unselect all. That's something that we can work on in the future. But let's put together something like this. And to do that, we will take this example that I built and, well, prepare the data exactly in exactly the same way as I did in here. So basically what happens here is when I downloaded this this original file, I had a couple of data sets here, okay? And each of them had something called stack in here. But what I decided to do is only limit will have a stack in its data set. So that's first data set, that is the limit, okay? And that's in here. That's the limit here, and that's the limit here on the left side. Every time we have PM10, PM2.5, NO2, and so on. And each of them have the limit on the left side colored in green. And so this is where the color goes. This is where the limit label goes, and that's the stack name that makes this data set separate from the rest of them. So this is the limit, and then each data set needs to be represented like an object. Another object here for AD, and AD is the second, it's the first country, just a second after limit. And then we have the label, color, and I also added this property here called hidden and set it to true, which means when you refresh, every time everything except for the limit is hidden, so it's disabled. Okay, so the rest of the data sets will be hidden, and all we need to do, we need to make sure that we are passing a list of all those countries with the label of the country that we have in the database, with the color that we stored in the database, and just set it to hidden and put the averages or min or max, whatever, in here as a list. Okay, so let's go to our view. So in Air Pollution app views, and let's scroll down to our visuals data here. And as you can see, as I said, we have labels, data, background, and so these are just the colors of each. It's a list again of the colors. So basically, it's something that we're looking for, but in a different format. What we need is something that will feed in only one view. So we're not going to split that by pollution like up until now. So we need to prepare the labels here. But then all we have to do really, obviously we can hard code some settings. Let me just scroll down. There's some settings here that we can tweak as well. But programmatically in the back end, we really need to prepare starting here, this long list consisting of those little objects here. So object by object, we need to put in the limit data, well, the limit object with its label, color, and data, and all the countries in that list. Okay, so that's going to require a bit of tweaking, but I think we will just need to move around some data from place to place, but we're in a good shape. So I suppose just to stick to the same format, because if we go to our welcome air pollution welcome HTML, what we do here with those canvas, we go through the visuals data items. So that's some sort of a dictionary that we go through, and then we use the pollution name, or we can call it a visual name, that we then put somewhere on top of each visual that we render, again using the for loop. Okay, so let's go back to views and let's start with this. In here, I'm going to create a first visual called pollution levels by country, by pollutant by country. Okay, and then we are gonna, so that's the key, we're gonna use it to put that as a title of the visual, and then in here we're gonna put in another dictionary where we put some settings. Mostly it's going to be that long list of data sets, but I think we also need to specify which kind of chart we want to use, because obviously we're going to use different settings, and for each of them we want to have separate code in JavaScript. Okay, so we have this done, and then so I suppose we can also prepare some information here, and then so that's going to be chart type, maybe. I'll just call it chart1 for now. And then we want to store data sets. That will be our list of, oh, sorry, that should be a colon. And that's going to store our datasets here. So we're going to serialize our Python list into a string, and then in here in JavaScript, we're going to grab that string and then load it into a JavaScript array. Oh, and obviously we need the labels as well. So we have the data sets here and we need the labels. So let's go here and maybe in here, go and labels. And that's going to be, give it a second. That's going to be a list as well. Right, so one annoying bit here is that this structure of these for loops where we start going through pollutants first and then we go through countries, it's a little bit annoying because we probably, yeah, it would be better if we went the opposite way. So we went through all of those countries first, and then inside of those countries we collect the data for each pollutant, because the data is supposed to represent a number, some aggregation for each of these pollutants. Okay, so but we can still manage. I'm not a big fan of reinventing the wheel. We already using this structure. We are already collecting some information for table data, so I don't want to really change not only visuals data but also table data, because well, I want to go first through countries and then through pollutants. Obviously I can create a new for loop, but I want to do everything in one go. So anyway, so what we need to do, let's have a look at this data here. In datasets, so we start with the limit, and then we have datasets for each of the country. So what if we just initialize it first, and then we can plug that information in on the go. So as we go through pollutants and then through countries, we can add that information in here. So let's start with the first bit. So obviously in the dataset, there's always this first limit dataset. So, oh, by the way, that's supposed to be called datasets, as far as I know. Datasets, yeah, okay. So this dataset's here, and the first one is limit. So let's go here and let's grab all those fields that we want to populate in there. Copy. So I used Option to select multiple, and then paste here. And I'm gonna again select this, and then Option, double click. I still hold Option, and now I'm pressing quotation mark, right, colon, space, quotation marks, right, comma. Okay, now it's it's a nice template now that we can use for, let's do Option Command L for beautifying. And now, okay, so this is going to be limit. So we can put that in there. And then we have the background color that we chose. Well, that's just, I chose this color. We can go with any other color. And hash. Stack is limit, so we need to specify that it's going to be a stack limit. And data is going to be, we're going to add that data in here one by one as we go through the pollutants. Okay, so that's going to be the first item, right? If we look at this array in JavaScript, we go through all of those data sets. We start with limit, and then we have the countries. So that should be, this is happening here, and then we can append the new data templates for the rest of the countries. So I'm going to do that here, okay, because we collect this country list that, and why I'm doing this here, it's basically, I'm just, instead of having a query, I have a list like this. So instead of querying those countries every single time when I go through pollutants here, we have a ready list in the memory, so it's just a bit quicker. And so, and again, I want to add to visuals data. So I'm going to copy this, and then adding to this chart. Okay, so in here, I want to go to the data sets. Okay, so I'm going to data sets, and I want to expand that data set, those data sets. So add to what we have already, a list of all the countries and the prepared templates for those countries. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do plus equals, because that's how you add to lists if you have another list. And I'm going to do a list comprehension here. So open brackets, square brackets, and then I'm going to take those fields that I need, copy, again using Option, and then open an object, and inside of that object I'm going to paste them in. And again, Option, double click, so I'm sure I'm just clicking this one first, and then Option and double click these, quotation, right, colon, space, quotation, right, comma. Okay, and this way I have this ready. And so the label will be, okay, so we are going to go through, this is how this comprehension is going to work. I'm going to just put this enter here so we can see it in one line. It's going to be just easier to see how this list comprehension works. So we are going to create this object for each country in country list. Okay, so we're going to go through this country list, and for each country, which is an object because we just take the object from the country model and we take all the objects. And for each country, and I just call it seeds to make it short, we're going to do something here. We're going to create this this object inside of this list. So label will be c.name. No, sorry, ISO code. We can go with name just to see how it looks. That's going to be c.color. Hidden true. As you remember, I said that we want to hide them first, and then we're going to prepare an empty list for adding that data as we go through this for loop. So now we added to this data set list all of the objects ready for the countries. Okay, so that's how you do it. This is the line. So that's ready. Let's go down to the for loop actually. So this is not applicable anymore. So I'm going to delete this line, and instead I'm going to add some data to the visuals, to this visual. Okay, it's a little bit different now. So I'm going to just copy this and just change it a little bit. So I want to go in visuals data. I want to open this dictionary that has data sets and labels, and I want to go to labels, labels, and I want to append the pollutant name. So we start adding those names to this list, and also let's paste it again. But I'm actually going to go to datasets, and then in the first dataset here, as we look at this is the first item of the datasets, and that's the limit. And I want to go and grab from the pollutant the limit for this, the limit value for this pollutant. So 0, and then I want to go to data. I want to add to this list here. I want to append pollutant dot limit value. Okay, I'm slightly over the line, so I'm going to just press enter here, and that should work. Okay, so now I'm adding this pollutant name to the labels list, and I'm also adding this limit value to the first item in the datasets, which is the limit. Okay, let's scroll down. So in here, I can see that we are collecting the data, so that should stay the same. The only changes that I can think of should happen here. So that's not applicable anymore. I'm going to just take that out. And in here, so again, let's copy this line because I want to add to datasets something. And I know also that I need to do one thing. So I'm going to add something here or change something in datasets. But what we have to do is we need to get the enumeration here. We need to know which country that we're looking at, so we know where in the datasets list to plug that information to. So that's how you get the number of the item in this list. So that's a list. If we enumerate it, we get 2 items. One is the index, and one is the actual item inside of the list. Okay, so now that we are in datasets, I want to go into ith. So of, like before, I was going to 0th because that was the limit. Now I want to go to ith plus 1 item. Okay, so we started with 0, so I can't go with I. I need to add 1, and then I'm going to go into the right country. And I'm going to append. And what did we append? Total. So I want to get this average in here. And I also want to round it. So I'm going to just write round value, comma 2. So that's going to round it to the second decimal place. Okay, and then enter here. Sorry, so I'm looking at the data sets, ith. So I need to add that to data. I forgot about one last, I can see that it can be very confusing what's happening here. But yeah, now it was highlighted. So it was saying, hey, you want to append something to what I have evaluated to be a dictionary. What's the story with that? And yeah, I want to go to data, which is indeed a list. And now I can append my average to the second digit. And also, because I know that some values are not there, so sometimes total will not exist. So I want to do something like this. Otherwise, if there is no total, I'm gonna say append -1. And that's gonna say you can't have -1 value for the pollution level. It can be negative. So that's gonna indicate that this country does not have information for this pollutant. Okay, so now the last bit will be changing this. So we have labels, but the rest will be a little bit different. We don't have the colors anymore. So I'm going to delete that. And so the colors are taken from the database, automatically put into the to this prepared dictionary for each country. So that's done before. It will be serialized anyway, as I serialize it here. Let me just go back. Where was it? Here, yeah. So I'm not interested in this as well. And we have the labels. I want to serialize the labels. But this is called now data sets. Copy and paste. So now the colors are actually inside of those data sets, but they will be serialized inside of this this object. Or sorry, that's actually a list. Okay, so that's pretty much done. Let's save it and see what we get maybe at this point. Let's start our debugger. That's on, and then go to 127, our portfolio. My face is still here. I need to change that. Okay, that's loaded. And now let's have a look at the data. Visuals data, pollution levels by pollutant by country. Okay, so that's the name of our, these are the labels. That worked. We have the chart type that I'm going to use in HTML. And then we have those. So we start with limit. Okay, we have the label, blah, blah, blah. Looks like it's working fine. And then we have those here as well. So as you can see, AL doesn't have data for the second last pollutant, which is BAP. Okay, so that's good to know. So anyway, so it seems to be working on the backend side. Let's release it. Okay. And go low. Cool. So let's take this from here. And now we need to change the HTML. So let me just see here what needs to be done. So basically this is our previous approach. Now I want to go, well, before it was a pollutant name in our visuals data as a key. Now it's going to be a chart name. So let's change this to chart name and then copy this and use it here. So that's going to be the name of it. My chart is actually something that I want to be dynamic. So this is why I said, hey, for this guy, for this chart, I want it to be chart 1. Chart type is saying that it's going to be chart 1, so I can have different settings for different charts. Okay, so that's going to be data.chart type. This seems to, height was pretty high, so I'm going to just change it to 350 so it's easier to look at. Chart name and then data labels, that's fine. Now for data, I'm thinking now if you want to have something that has only one data and it's not a data set, then if I change it to data set, that's going to be a little bit annoying. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to leave data and then add one more. So we can actually, if data.data doesn't exist, then it's going to be none, and that's fine. So we can leave, and we just don't use it then in the chart setting. Data sets will be data sets. Okay, and that seems to be working fine. That should be closed here, and then we open it here, close it here. Okay, that seems to be working. We don't need this. We're not using, well, we might. So I'm going to leave it there, but it's going to be just none if we're not putting that in our data, and that's fine. So let's go down. And so I'm going to abandon this one because it was very simple. So I'm going to just change this to what we need. So the chart type that I was mentioning here, we need to use it here because I put it into a class. And so I want to grab everything that has chart 1 or this chart type in our HTML and put this chart inside of it. So that's going to be my chart 1 for each, do this. And then we have the name, we have the labels, data will be data sets. Sets is our data sets. And then we don't have this. No, we don't have this. And we want to change data sets to parse data sets. That's gone. Okay. And then we have this new chart. So let's have a look here. Basically, we can just copy this. And so the way it's split in here, first we create this in the sample that I downloaded. They created this variable here that puts together this one big object. And then at the very bottom, you use it in here. Okay, so I'm just gonna copy this from here. Let's see where it ends. It ends here. So I'm gonna just copy this, paste it from here to here. Oh, shift, click, and copy, paste here. Option Command L. Okay, and I need to put something in here. If you look at this data, it really consists of two things. Let's go all the way up. It consists of labels and datasets. So all we need is to, in here, we don't need to initialize a separate variable. I can say, hey, that's going to be an object with labels inside that holds labels, and it's going to have datasets that will hold datasets. So really now, if you look here, that's exactly what's happening. I'm putting labels to labels, datasets to datasets. They're both lists. And in here, I can just do this. This datasets is a big ass string that is being parsed into a list. So that's going to work. And I can see name is not being used because we need to put that in here. So yeah, that should be it. Let me just refresh, stop and rerun. Let's go to our website and refresh here. Fingers crossed. Let's scroll down, and here is our visual. It seems to be working. These are the limits. So first you can just glance what are the limits for each of the pollutant. And then let's have a look. How is Poland against Ireland? Against maybe Germany. Where's Germany? DE. Germany is very industrial, so I can imagine they're going to have a lot of well, they're not too bad. They also come up with the standards, so I suppose. Anyway, so here is our comparison. So you can highlight the comparison and see, okay, limit for PM10 is 50 and the averages, they're all below. Okay, NO2, pretty good. Everything is below. O3 seems to be just on the verge, and let's remember, it's just an average. So we can have a look at max and min as well and see what's how they do with min and max. Cool, so it works. We have the name here, we have our countries here, and if you want to change that, let's go back, and as I told you before, we can, instead of going with country ISOs, we can, let's go here, and change it to name. Okay, save it, refresh. Okay, I think I can see it's refreshing itself. So let's go here and refresh, give it a second. And now we should see countries. So now it's a little bit easier to read and find the countries that we're looking for, but also still pretty compact. So I don't know, I'm pretty proud of this. You should be proud as well because you built something quite interesting. In the next tutorial, I want to build one more visual with you guys. So we use something else than just bar chart. But yeah, after that, I want to focus on Django a little bit because we veered off from Django quite a bit to build those views. But I wanted to show you also how to use class-based views and some nifty stuff that Django has to offer. But yeah, I mean, congratulations, you built something really cool. You can be really proud of yourself. And well, let's keep it going. I'm really excited about where this is headed. Okay, thanks for watching and see you in the next one.